Hello and welcome to my channel, From Profession to Passion, with me, Vicky Mittman. The purpose of this channel is to inform and inspire professionals to live their careers on their terms. Whilst the traditional route in many professions may work well for some, it isn't for everyone, and there are different ways of doing things. On this channel, I'll be sharing my own story of how I combined my profession in law with my passion for coaching and mentoring, and I'll be interviewing other professionals who've developed their own side hustles, changed career directions altogether, or found some other way to involve their passions in their professional lives. I am so thrilled today to be joined by Rachel Ray. Rachel and I know each other through the franchise sector, and she's had an amazing journey so far. She's best known as an award-winning entrepreneur that founded Bright and Beautiful, taking it to a 7-figure business. Now she's doing mentoring, business strategy, and personal resilience through her company, the Chromia Group. But Rachel, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey so far?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me, Vicky. And I have, obviously we've known each other through the franchise world because you've been really fantastic support to franchisees and franchisors. So yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, I mean, if you want to rewind the clock to when I was a young girl, I went to probably the sort of school that was quite academic and pushed people towards the traditional careers of doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers. And, I was fortunate that I was naturally quite academic, and I didn't find it too difficult to study, and I enjoyed lots of subjects. I particularly loved biology and maths, but I definitely wasn't suited to being a doctor because I'm extremely squeamish. So that was, prohibitive.
That's out.
And I think when I left school, I just wanted to see the world, and I didn't particularly want to go to university because I perceived it as like, oh, I'll just be in another institution. It'll just be like school. I want to go and earn money and be a grown-up. So I chose to train as an accountant because obviously you can actually train and do your exams whilst you work. So I found myself in London working for one of the big city accounting firms, one of the biggest ones in the world. Very, corporate, marble reception, the whole works, the real sort of very actually aggressive. The culture was, I mean, we're talking a fair few decades ago. So we're talking early 90s, late 80s, 89, I think I started. And it was very much, it was quite arrogant. It was quite aggressive. And for me, I felt quite constrained by this traditional career. I realized as I was qualified by the time I was 21, that for me, it was a bit frustrating. I was like counting the pennies for big businesses that I had no empathy with after the effect. Whereas actually, I felt creative and driven. And I wanted to do something more, but I didn't really know what that was. And one of the things is I looked at the partners and even the middle management, and I thought, well, I don't aspire to have your life. You're working long hours, commuting. There's a lot of one-upmanship. It's quite bullying. I'm not saying it's like this today, but then it was very bullying and very aggressive, and it wasn't me. So I remember having an appraisal with my manager that was like, well, you're going to have to suck up to Richard, the partner, a bit more and make sure you ingratiate yourself, and a scene to be. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to play that game. I don't really want to be in this isn't the career ladder for me. So I sort of, once I'd been qualified for about a year, I quit my job and I went backpacking around Asia with my sister. Saw a bit of Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore, and had a really great time. And it broadened my horizons, obviously. So then I was like, okay, so I want to be working where I feel a bit closer to the action, or a bit more of a tangible result, a bit more flexibly. So I started to get freelance contracts as an accountant. So again, I was still working in a business. So it was either, a big life assurance company I worked for, housing association, also quite a few different types of businesses. And then I worked for a charity, and that started to broaden what I did because I got involved in training and stuff in the community. And I started to feel more purpose and connection with my job, not just earning my money, but actually enjoying it. So I thought, okay, wouldn't it be great if I could combine my accountancy, which is actually obviously pretty well paid, with what I'm starting to enjoy with training and people development and interaction. And I realized that business consultancy, business coaching would be more suited to that. And I started to work for a brilliant company. This again, I still live down in London, so it's just on the outskirts of London. And they basically ran a network of mid-sized accounting firms, and they were training those firms to be more proactive, more marketing oriented, more sort of relational, because again, accountancy, as you know, with law, can be very traditional and quite stiff and quite formal, a bit old school. Well, even more so when I'm talking a couple of decades ago. So we were helping them transition to be much more personable and proactive, to do value billing based on the projects that they were going to do, and most importantly, to help their business clients grow their businesses strategically. And I really loved this. So we ran conferences where we'd present and train to the whole group. We'd have to really try and get the dynamic going. We'd then take them through a coaching development program that involved also consulting to their business clients, running focus groups, exit planning, strategic planning. Learned so much and found something that I loved because it was applying a mix of skills to a business situation. So that was great. And one of the great things about it was the cultural contrast to this aggressive corporate environment that I'd been in. Whereas this company was owned by two Australian guys, and one was an accountant and one was a marketing guru. And they had a very different culture because in Australia, it's more egalitarian and more friendly and more warm. Certainly back then in business, it really was. And so the whole dynamic was entrepreneurial. It was affirming to the team. We were so committed to the vision because they made it really compelling. And as consultants, we really wanted to see our business grow, our clients' businesses grow. And I loved the attention to the detail. So when we'd run a conference, it was everything from like the initial touch points, the initial greeting, the initial welcome, the dynamic of the 4 days and how we'd interact and make sure the social aspect was good. So they didn't queue for dinner. So attention to detail so that customer client journey was really good. So it taught me to look through the eyes of your customer, to have empathy. Yeah. It was great. I really, really loved it.
Yeah, it sounds like a really nice progression from learning the technical skills that the accountancy taught you, but then also being able to broaden those out to so much more of a holistic presence and value that you can add to people that you're working with, and running separately, but alongside that was this culture shift into this way of working that felt much more resonant with you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so, for example, I learned so much from this period of my working life that I then transferred into my own companies. So, for example, one of their catchphrases was blame a process, not a person, which is so simple, but so genius, because what it did was, instead of having a blame culture where, something's gone wrong and you're all like, oh no, I've got to, pass the buck. I've got to, try and cover this up because I'm going to be sacked. Yeah. There was a much more of a culture of, okay, something's gone wrong. We've lost a client, we've had a complaint, there's been some disaster.
Which happens, right?
Which does happen, exactly. We would go, blame a process, not a person. And we'd be really forensic about, okay, so what exactly went wrong in this process?
What step was missing or wasn't carried out properly? Where's the training need? What needs to happen? Okay.
Yeah, and the breakdown in communication. One little thing that we thought was blatantly obvious has now been missed, and someone's dropped the ball. And of course, this creates a culture of innovation as well as a culture of mutual support and knowing you can be transparent. And it really set me up for franchising, because clearly, as we both know, that's a big part of developing a franchise manual, isn't it? Of like, okay, all the little things that could be misconstrued, let's make sure they're right.
And that's what franchisees are buying into. They're buying into someone having tested all of that and knowing how to do it really from day one, from training, with this resource guide, and it's so much better if someone's thought all the way through it and is working constantly to perfect that and to update it. That those systems are crucial.
And so I literally, that was our mantra at Bright and Beautiful as I grew that company, because it just really works. It's so simple but effective. And the other thing I loved about working for this company was because there was an accountant and a marketing, the two directors, the two owners, that's their expertise. Everything we did to grow a business, we tied it back to the bottom line. So we would test creative marketing, advertising, sales ideas, but we'd always measure the success and tie it back to, does this impact the net profit? Does this grow the revenue? You know, I learned some of the fundamental things like increasing the recurring revenue of a business, how to increase the long-term value of a business, how to make sure you're working on your business and you're delegating and you're structuring it so it's not dependent on you as an owner. So many really important lessons. And even things like start with the end in mind. Yeah. When you grow a business, it's an asset. Don't let it be about you. Help grow it with a long-term exit plan. Yeah. So these things set me up for success once I then was in a position to start my own company, which was Bright and Beautiful.
So when did you start Bright and Beautiful? When was that?
So this was in about 2008. Okay. So I
sold it a couple of years ago.
I sold it 5 years ago. Well, no,
gosh,
I know.
Gosh, okay. So what was it about that sort of business that you thought, yes, this is what I want to do?
So I mean, with the job I just mentioned, Results Accountant Systems, the company was called, I'd been all over the world, well, lived in Australia, and I was general manager of the consulting firm over there. And then we moved back to the UK and had two young girls. So my daughters were like 2 and 4 at the time. And Rob, my husband, had a property maintenance business and a gardening business. So he had various different trades guys working on properties, you know, looking after gardens. And one of his clients said, oh, well, do you offer cleaning services? Because he was sort of marketed as like this, you know, solution for the home. And he said, oh, yes, of course. Yes, I'll ask my wife to come around and quote. So here I am, as, you know, I was back in the UK, but I was working in this business consulting space for those companies on a freelance basis. And, you know, being good entrepreneurs, it was like, oh, okay, so I'll go and quote. But I just stopped and thought, well, hang on a minute. I hate cleaning. My ironing's piled high. You know, I don't have time to manage my home. You know, and I empathized with the target client, because I really was that target client. I was that busy career woman or a busy working couple that didn't have time to be looking after the home for hours and hours at the weekend. So I went with a professional service firm approach to go and do this quote, which it really makes me chuckle, because I just thought, okay, that's what I'll go and do. So again, value proposition, you know, so I went and I just thought, what would I like? So it was a lovely house in a lovely part of Manchester. It's like, okay, so we will clean it from, you know, ceiling to floor, and all the beds will be made like a hotel, and everything will be tidied, and all your laundry will be done. And, you know, the team, again, I was very committed to sort of healthy, non-toxic products. I'm like, we'll have pure products, you know, they'll be non-toxic, eco-friendly. So really, in honesty, I was making it up by my dream service.
Yeah, what you'd like for yourself was what you were then offering to a client. Okay.
And which, to be fair, I'd not really found at the times I had quotes. So that's how Bright and Beautiful was born. That the client said yes. I thought, right, well, I better employ a housekeeper quick, because, you know, I can't clean my own house, let alone anyone else's. I knew to work on, not in. And so that's how Bright and Beautiful got started.
Gosh. And just from that, then it became this massive business.
Well, obviously, it was a couple of steps on the way. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. But that's fantastic. So, and over the time you ran it, how many franchisees did you have at your sort of your largest, biggest point?
When I sold the business to Neighbourly, there was 55 franchisees from Edinburgh down to Plymouth. Yeah. So that was really in the space of about sort of 9 years, actually, from that starting point.
Yeah, and just for the benefit of anyone watching this video who's not in the franchise sector, franchisees are all separately owned businesses. They're local businesses in a particular territory usually, but they're using the brand and system that a franchisor like Rachel here has created. So you were really supporting business owners in their own territory to do what you had done and to grow their own businesses.
And of course, that's where my background as a business consultant, you know, fitted right in.
And also your accountancy knowledge and looking at the numbers and the bottom line.
Because sometimes I think the challenge for someone that's going to franchise their business is obviously they can be really great at the technical aspect of that particular business, and they know how to grow that business and they're passionate about their product or their service, but they don't necessarily know how to train others or how to grow a network. But for me, that was more similar to my previous role, where running conferences and discovery sessions and training and then business coaching was something that I was trained in. So it was really helpful once we started to franchise after a couple of years. So we grew the business locally around South Manchester, and it obviously started to be constricted by geography and how far our teams could travel. And so it was a great way to replicate a business, isn't it? As we both know, to franchise and to have, again, to give other people an opportunity to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves, which is a cliche, but it is. I really do like it because it's true. So it was great to help other people have an entrepreneurial opportunity as well.
Yeah, and they're having that entrepreneurial opportunity with the culture that you've developed because of the different influences that have influenced you, like the blame a process, not a person, that type of culture. And it's already been shaped, the system has been figured out, and the brand has some cachet already and some customer base and some goodwill. So actually being able to go from that starting point is so much better than when you start from scratch completely. That's why franchising is a popular way of expanding a business. Okay, so talk to me, Rachel, then about what you're doing now with the Chromia Group.
So once I sold Bright and Beautiful, I made the most of my sudden opportunity to travel the world, went to like so many different countries, mostly, with the family as well. So my girls, teenagers at this point. And then I decided to do a master's in leadership because, again, just personal development, growth. Within that, I specialised. I did some more strategic modules, but also things like the psychology of well-being and emotion, cross-cultural communication, and quite a lot of different modules that were really interesting. And it sort of helped form my idea for what has now become the Chromia Group. And what I'm focused on is helping entrepreneurs, some of whom are franchisors, accelerate the growth of their business. So helping their businesses become less dependent on them. So many entrepreneurs just do get consumed, and in maybe it's personality type, but a lot of the business can depend on them, and they can end up quite burnt out, worn out, and they can be the bottleneck of the business growth. So helping entrepreneurs to delegate and structure, to innovate and build the long-term value of their business with that exit strategy in mind. Again, having done that full business cycle myself, it's not just talking from a consultancy situation. In fact, sometimes, once I had my own business, I look back to some of the things I would have said as a consultant and thought, well, that's great in theory, but you probably didn't have the same empathy or practical understanding, whereas obviously I do now because I've been there. So I love helping entrepreneurs grow, franchisors expand and grow their network with that long-term exit strategy in sight. And the other side of that is because I'm helping entrepreneurs delegate and restructure, helping them to get a better balance in their life and invest in their own health, their fitness, nutrition, other interests, and just having a bit more of a diverse and life that, again, more time with family or friends, because it's just so challenging, isn't it, Pete? So many people are sort of can be close to burnout or overstretched, and it doesn't have to be like that. So that is now my passion.
Yeah, and that's just wonderful. And I certainly get a lot of that feeling from my coaching when I do that. I'm coaching people who are either senior level executives or senior level professionals, and they're putting everything they've got into their business, their profession, and they're doing a wonderful job with that. But they're also stretched, and there's no sort of give, and they're not prioritizing themselves because they've always got someone else to look out for and look after and delegate to, support. So actually taking that time to build their own resilience, their own bank of coping mechanisms and ways of doing things which support them to be the best they can be, and then also motivate and coach others in their team. I think that's such an important aspect of what you're doing, along with the the planning and the strategy, which is of course crucial for a business.
Yeah, and I mean, my final sort of dissertation for my master's, I focused on the transformative self, which is all about setting your long-term vision and goals, but having goal congruence with the day-to-day, and really looking at your life sort of narrative and journey and what you want to achieve. Because again, we can just get so busy in the doing that we lose sight of the bigger picture of our business, but even more importantly, the bigger picture of our life and the precious time we have on this planet. And so that was sort of what my master's culminated in. So with the clients that I work with, you know, that's an aspect of it as well, helping them look at that bigger picture sort of holistically, which I find really fulfilling and really important, because it wasn't really till I sold Bright and Beautiful that I had time to reflect in that way. But actually, you can reflect on the journey. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to sell your business to have time to think. That's where I come in and help people, you know, make that it's more workable. So
yeah, and a lot of people might not sell their business until they're ready to retire. And you
the
might
thing
be
is, if you
doing
love
this at the perfect point, because you're actually like, what's next after I sell the business? What do I want to do? And that was really like well timed for you. But a lot of people who might be working with the business until retirement and then actually plan to have a very relaxed life after that, they might not ever do this work. And it's really important because it might massively change how their business looks by the time they come to sell. And it might also have helped them live the life that's more like recognizable to them as what they want for retirement anyway, rather than having that big shock going from a 100 miles an hour business owner to retired, whatever retirement might look like.
Yeah, exactly, because an exit strategy could be, you know, really long term, but as you're saying, it could just be a transition to less dependency on you, so that you're much more of a sort of non-exec director of your company, and you've again mentored the next generation or the next level of management. You know, that also is great business practice, isn't it? That the business isn't dependent too much on one person, and that
you might be able to stay doing something longer if you're not doing it at the 100 miles an hour. If you're working at 50 miles an hour with the business sometimes, but you're also traveling or doing your hobbies, whatever it might be that you want for retirement, you might actually stay engaged a lot longer, and that might be really positive for you and for your business.
Exactly, and that definitely is the case for again some of the businesses I work with, that it's not about it's people, you know, they love what they do. It's just making it so that, as you say, you've got better quality of life over the next however many years. And yeah, you're more effective if you're refreshed and your mind is clear. So it's helping them on that journey. And also, yeah, the health and fitness side of things, you know, that's become a passion of mine. Because, you know, once I hit a certain age where I'm like, okay, I can feel myself aging here, actually building muscle mass, building fitness, movement, joints, ligaments, you know, energy. I actually genuinely feel better than I did in my 30s.
Which is wonderful. Because I'm in my 30s now, but I'm doing the heavy strength training and things so that hopefully I will feel strong in my 50s and 60s and 70s. That's my goal. I'm not doing it to feel strong today necessarily, even though it's helping with that. But my plan is to have more mobility and better joints and better strength when I'm 70.
Exactly. Yeah, same here. Exactly. I love that. I agree wholeheartedly.
I feel like we could talk for a whole other video on that. But just, you know, wrapping up this, because it's been so great to learn about your journey so far and what you've done and the varied steps of your career, because it's not like you've done something wildly different to how you started, but actually the way you've progressed has been logical and natural, but it's just taken in more and more of what you enjoy doing, which is really lovely to see. But what sort of advice would you give if you could go back in time to your 21-year-old self? What would you tell her?
Well, I think it's about making the most of whatever is in front of you to do. So the times when I was doing like the freelance accountancy work that I was a bit like, I'm just doing this to pay my bills. Actually, I still learned something from that, because I saw quite a lot of different businesses. I met a lot of different types of people. So I have a bit more understanding and empathy, different people, different parts of the country that I'd worked in. So even if it feels a bit piecemeal and a bit messy, it's actually good life experience if you go with a curious attitude to learn. Now, in an ideal world, you'd identify what you're passionate about sooner rather than later. So sometimes I look back and think my 21-year-old and think, well, why didn't I do a marketing degree? Because I really love marketing. But actually, so if you can identify the things you love and the things that you're naturally good at and invest your time into that, then I think that's good advice. And I read something recently that helped, that I thought put a good caveat to that, which was, look at the things you like and look at what is most likely to make money or how you could monetize something.
Yeah, that you already love to do. Yeah,
that you already love to do, because it's a fine balance. Obviously, sometimes people, walk away from creative careers because they think it's not very lucrative. So actually, one of the businesses that I co-own now that I'm passionate about is called Art Table, which is, and we will be franchising it before too long, because it is about art classes for creative art classes, fine art classes. It's beautiful for young people, primary school, moving into secondary school, because there's a lack of art provision and it's not funded particularly anymore. But the reason I'm passionate about that business is because, again, a lot of people in creative careers, fine artists or whatever, it's not always that lucrative, but it's their passion. Whereas by being a tutor with us at Art Table or a franchisee, there's a way of earning money in that space while supporting your creative career.
Yes.
So to get back to your question, to my younger self, I would be saying, try and get that balance between what you love and what you're good at and what will also make you money. And once you've found it, put everything into it, learning, growth, development, networking, and be more confident in who you are, because we're all unique. And yeah, obviously, I know I would look back to my 20s and 30s, so much self-doubt, so much looking at people thinking, oh, they all know more than me. I think it's human nature. Have a bit more confidence. Go, you know what you know well, so just do it with all your heart and don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, and no one's going to be you better than you are.
And it's so easy to say as an older person, but I think one of the things I would say to my younger self is, just be more confident and relaxed about who you are. Don't always be thinking that everybody else knows more and is better, because actually that can be intimidating, can't it?
It can, and it's also so important, because when you do say, actually, this is authentically me, and I'd like to think now that I'm the same Vicky if I'm with my friends having dinner, if I'm a lawyer, if I'm a coach, whatever it might be, I'm still Vicky, and that doesn't change too much. And I used to feel, certainly in my 20s maybe, that I had this professional persona Vicky that looked a certain way and did a certain thing and dressed a certain way. And I remember feeling like there was a bit of a disconnect between that professional persona and who I was. And it took so much energy to keep that persona out there looking like it should, in order for me to feel like depleted at the end of the day because I was like fighting. But actually, you can be authentically you, and you can be, you can be warm and enthusiastic and courageous as a lawyer, as a coach, as a friend, and those are all values of mine. And as soon as I embraced those, I thought, well, this is what makes me me. That's a wonderful thing. It became wonderful because I attracted clients that feel the same way. I had much better conversations with people because I knew what was coming from me, and I was very sure about that, and it was authentic. And I think there was so much less effort putting into a persona that wasn't quite right, that didn't quite fit me, but I thought it should, and actually that's a really crucial part, isn't it?
I think that is spot on, isn't it? And I think once you are yourself, because you just go, okay, well, this is my lane, I'm going to run in it. I don't have to try and be corporate version, or I don't have to try and fit in with other people. I don't mean being disrespectful, but being yourself, just being yourself. I think it helps other people feel relaxed, doesn't it? Because we can be relaxed and everyone else goes, oh, actually, okay, let's just be ourselves. And I think that's really great. So yeah, I love that.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for sharing your story and for your words of wisdom. If anyone would like to get in touch with you to find out more about what you're doing, or just to have a conversation, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I do love Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram, which is at the Chromia Group, Rachel Ray. I'm also on LinkedIn, obviously Rachel Ray, and again the Chromia Group. Website is chromiagroup.com. So my contact details are on there if anyone wants to drop me an email.
And I'll drop those into the details below the video. So that would be great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Vicky. I love this. I think it's great that you're just empowering and encouraging people to, pursue their passion. So love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's provided some food for thought. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe below and feel free to like or comment. I'd love to know what you think. If you're interested in hearing more about this, please join my Facebook community, From Profession to Passion with Vicky Mittman. I'll see you next time.